From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
And good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on your MTN statewide news on this Wednesday. I'm Andrea Lutz. This afternoon, there's reaction happening in Montana surrounding the guilty verdict handed down to a former Minneapolis police officer for killing George Floyd. Protests erupted across the country, and while there was some disruption and some destruction, there were also many peaceful protests. In Montana, protesters gathered last June in Billings to remember Floyd and call for justice in the wake of his death. Ken and Amber Palmer helped organize that protest and say they waited for the verdict to come down yesterday, and their stomachs were in knots.
My stomach was just in knots because I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, with cases that have happened like this previously, there has been no punishment.
I wasn't prepared for them to say guilty. I was hoping beyond hope that they said guilty, but I was prepared for them to say not guilty. So them saying guilty was a huge relief. I've dealt with my own situations with police, being profiled, just for how I look. Walking down the street, being questioned, being hassled, being harassed.
There is good that can come from this. I mean, this is definitely a small step in the right direction, and it just shows that things are changing, and hopefully now more people will be held accountable for their violent actions towards anybody. I mean, just because you commit a crime or because you're suspected doesn't mean that you need to be murdered.
So even though this verdict, was great and it needed to happen, we still have a long way to go.
All right, and Chauvin could face up to 75 years behind bars. All right, let's take a break from news and let's check in on the weather. How's it going, Miller?
Feeling pretty good outside.
I don't want to say anything because I don't want to jinx anything, but
okay, maybe we should stop right now because it's not all good news. We do have more snow in the forecast. What's going on? It's springtime, folks. Let's take a look at those temperatures out there. Let's live in the here and now. A lot of sunshine across Montana, northern Wyoming. We've got 50 in Kalispell, 46 in Missoula, state capital Helena at 44. Some 30s though, Butte and Dillon, also Cody, Sheridan in the 30s right now, 51 up in Glasgow. Now we have high pressure that is dominating today, and it should dominate all the way through this evening and early tomorrow morning. But what you don't see there coming out of the north, our next snow maker, possibly, there's a good chance. I'll tell you when that's going to hit with the main forecast coming up. Andrea.
All right, Miller, thanks so much. Well, we have enjoyed this warmer weather recently. Those temperatures combined with wind have caused some trouble for prescribed burns. MTN's Russ Thomas shares how the weather is keeping Western Montana fire crews pretty busy.
If the last several months have seemed drier than usual to you, you're in tune with Mother Nature. Other than February, the last 6 months, including April, have seen below normal precipitation, oftentimes coupled with warmer than normal temperatures and wind. This has led to an increased number of fires.
We've seen some drying here in the last 6 to 8 weeks. We've been in this kind of a pattern where we've seen more episodes of wind, and we also saw a fire break out in Western Montana. That was 25,000 acres in March.
The Frenchtown Fire Department has seen a big increase in springtime fire activity compared to recent years. Public Information Officer Mel Holtz says spring fire season can be deceptive because it lacks the intense heat of summer.
Our fuels are really dry. Grasses out there are really dry. And so while homeowners are out burning on their property or cleaning up their property, conducting some debris burns, we're seeing the wind pick up, and it doesn't take much to carry that debris burn and spread that out of control where the fire department's been called in.
As long as these dry and often windy conditions are in place, Holtz says it's important to pay attention to the forecast before burning. He suggests burning early in the day if possible and to have a plan in place should conditions get tricky.
Having the proper tools, having a garden hose, having a water supply, as well as having tools, shovels and rakes, that if it were to get out of control, slightly out of your containment area, you can quickly get that back in with water, with tools.
Now, long-range forecast models are projecting the potential for wetter weather conditions 1 to 2 weeks out, which should help suppress fire starts as we head toward the month of May. In Missoula, I'm Russ Thomas, MTN News.
And on average, May and June are Western Montana's wettest months of the year. Long-range models are projecting near normal precipitation, though, for May. All right, Governor Greg Gianforte is banning a provision designed to create affordable housing in some of Montana's highest priced cities. This stops inclusionary zoning in Montana, a practice adopted by two Montana communities, Bozeman and Whitefish. It requires developers to include a portion of lower priced affordable homes with any housing project in their city. Most builders objected to the policy, saying it costs them money. Well, now the city manager for Bozeman says he's beyond disappointed, saying so far the measure has seen success and the city will continue to pursue other policies to achieve affordable housing. The price of an average home in Bozeman has increased to about $600,000, while in Whitefish it's still sitting at about $500,000. The bill that passed the legislature on mostly party lines, with Republicans in favor of banning the practice. Well, the Montana Senate voted down a bill to prohibit gender transition surgeries for youth. The vote likely will be killed for the session. At first, House Bill 427 was set to debate on the House floor today, but leaders delayed that vote. Senator Bryce Bennett, a Democrat from Missoula, then moved to postpone that bill. The motion passed 27-22, while 8 Republicans joined all Democrats. A similar but broader bill to block additional procedures failed on the House floor earlier in the session. Lawmakers advanced a pair of bills to cut Montana's top income tax rate. One bill drops the top income tax rate to 6.7% and costs the state $30 million a year. If it does pass, it would take effect in 2022. The other drops the top rate to 6.5 in 2024. It also gets rid of 24 tax deductions and credits and drops thousands of low-income people off the state income tax rolls entirely. Democrats are widely opposed to the bills, but they'll vote in the House a little bit later this week. The Senate Majority Leader says it is time to legalize marijuana at the federal level. Chuck Schumer saying he hopes to achieve that by next April 20th, and by the time that rolls around. Schumer and 2 other senators announced plans in February to release a proposal on comprehensive marijuana reform. That proposal hasn't yet been released, but the House recently passed legislation to allow banks to work with cannabis companies in states where marijuana is already legal. The Senate hasn't yet voted on it. A giant new natural gas plant could be on its way to Laurel. Northwestern Energy planning to build a $250 million facility. The Laurel Generating Station is part of the company's plan to boost what officials call long-term capacity resources. A spokesperson for Northwestern Energy says they'll announce the specific location in a month, and the company wants to have it up and running by 2024. Northwestern must submit an application to the Public Service Commission, but that could take up to 9 months for them to approve it. With a much anticipated busy flying season ahead of us, the Transportation Safety Administration is looking to hire. TSA wants to hire 13 people in Billings, along with some positions in Missoula too. And those who already work for TSA say it could be a dream job for anyone looking to change careers.
It's kind of nice because you have the ability to move around and to promote within the agency and still work for the same company. So it's great. It's different. There's a lot of diverse things about our job. We're always getting trained to find new threats, and so it always keeps you on your toes.
All right, there is a hiring event happening today. It's taking place until 6 o'clock tonight. Wages start at $16.51 an hour, including benefits, paid training, and overtime. But there's also a $500 hiring incentive being offered, and there's even assistance at this hiring fair with the application process. Okay, we have more news ahead on this Wednesday New News, including a new look at the Montana Highway Patrol. They've been designing a new uniform with a special mission in mind. We'll take a look, and Miller's back up with a look at that statewide weather forecast.